In the quiet town of Muldroth, the world had turned into a twisted version of itself. The old pre-apocalypse days seemed like a hazy dream, now overrun by relentless, dead, cruel shadows of humanity clawing their way through the remnants of civilization. Hopper had learned to adapt. For every day she survived, the burden of caution weighed heavier on her shoulders. When the relentless dead mod had burst into her game, she initially greeted it with excitement. The challenge promised to deepen the mechanics of survival: zombies that could hear a twig snap from hundreds of feet away, barriers that could sustain only so many blows before crumbling under the pressure of insatiable hunger, and evolution that laid bare the terrifying reality of what they really were: an unstoppable force. But as the days wore on, reality marked her enjoyment of the mod. She had spent the last week crafting her haven from the chaos outside, a fortified farmhouse on the outskirts of town, tucked away behind a series of makeshift barricades. Each morning, she rose early, surveying her surroundings with eagle-eyed vigilance. She had managed to gather wood and scrap metal, reinforcing her walls and crafting locks for her doors. Her little farm thrived: long rows of potatoes, corn, and beans that she watered tenderly, a simple solace amid the horror. The sanctuary came with a price. Every night, her sleep was punctuated by the echoes of the living dead outside. As shadows fell, she could hear their restless moans, a wretched chorus that seeped into her dreams. Each nighttime skirmish left her adrenaline rushing, especially during the half-moons when the undead seemed particularly aggressive, their ghostly forms forced forward by primal hunger. One fateful evening, the sound that pierced the twilight wasn't one of moaning, it was the dull crack of wood snapping. Hopper's heart raced. She had secured her barricades and locked her doors, but dread filled the air, thick like smoke. The noise had come from behind her farmhouse, and she knew the outside world had become a breeding ground for danger. Rushing to her window, she peered out, using the dim light from a nearby kerosene lamp to guide her vision. Sure enough, beyond the old tractor and the overturned generator, a small horde had gathered. They were drawn as if by an invisible string, their heads twisting towards the source of sound. Her gut clenched. In horror, she realized they were not just milling about. They were evolving, quicker and more decisive now, testing every weak point she so painfully fortified. "No," she whispered, horrified as they began shoving against a fence, one of her reinforced barriers. A breath later, a crunching sound echoed, far more ominous than the cracking wood. "Not the fence," she uttered in disbelief. Her fingers trembled against the window sill. This wasn't just a game anymore, it was life and death. With a lift of determination, Hopper scrambled back into her kitchen, grabbing her crossbow and a few arrows. Weapons were scarce, and she had learned to conserve ammunition. So many times she had found the gun repair kits to be her saving grace, only to toss them aside later, facing endless hordes until the last bullet was lost. Crouching low, she emerged from the door, moving with calculated stealth. If she made even the slightest noise, she would attract them, perhaps making her farmhouse a tomb. As she approached the fence, she could see them, their grotesque, rotting faces snarling as they pressed forward. The wood groaned beneath their weight, shifting as the first splinters fell away, under the force. Heart pounding, she fitted an arrow into her crossbow, took a breath, and aimed carefully. "Here goes," she muttered, releasing the bolt into the nearest creature. The shot was precise, piercing through its eye, and it crumpled to the side. One down, so many more to go. Every shot mattered. With each arrow that found its mark, a fierce resolve bloomed within her. She couldn't just sit behind walls and hope. It was time to take action. She sprinted back to grab a tool repair kit, fully aware that barricades would need to be reinforced after this encounter. Night turned to dawn, and by the time the sun's light pierced through the mists of night, Hopper stood steadfast against the fence, every muscle taut, the dead laying at her feet, proof of her tenacity. Though fatigue clawed at her edges, she took a step back, surveying the destruction they'd attempted to wreak. She had survived the night. But the sheer unrelenting nature of this mood echoed within her mind. Survival was no longer guaranteed. Exhaustion crept over her as she felt the curtain of night give way to a bloody dawn. Though the stillness of victory was sweet, she knew the relentless echoes of their hunger would grow louder as she pressed forward. Gathering new resources would take priority, and for that, she would need to be quick and smart. Hopper took a deep breath, wiping the sweat from her brow. The world outside was a menagerie of horror, but she wouldn't allow fear to eclipse her spirit. She would build, she would fight, and she would thrive relentless just like the dead.